I want to begin by speaking directly to the silent agony of having your emotional state tied to someone else. It is the pain of feeling that your peace, your happiness, and your sense of worth no longer belong to you. It is the feeling of being a puppet. Invisible strings are pulled by its action, moods, or even the simple presence or absence of someone. And this dependence leaves us in a constant state of anxiety and helplessness, like a boat adrift, being dragged by a tide that we cannot control. If you are looking for a way to let go, the first thing you need to understand is that, in Carl Jung's profound philosophy, emotional detachment has nothing to do with becoming cold, indifferent, or cutting off a connection in anger. Detachment is an act of rescue. It is not about walking away from the person, but rather about courageously reclaiming the most precious parts of yourself that you have unconsciously projected and given to them. Because the reason you can't let go, the reason this person seems to have so much power over you, is rarely the person themselves. It's the psychological hook they represent. For some reason, they've become the perfect canvas for projecting a hero you've needed, a savior for your pain, an unlived potential in your own soul, or, more commonly, an old wound that hasn't yet healed. You're not attached to them. You're attached to what they represent to your psyche. Think of your life force, your focus, and your power as a magnificent golden anchor. In an unhealthy state of attachment, you've cast that anchor onto someone else, and now your own boat is being dragged wherever their boat goes. It's being tossed around by every storm. Detachment from the soul's perspective is the courageous and necessary act of beginning to pull up that anchor yard by yard, bringing it back to the center of your own boat, where it, and only there, can give you stability, sovereignty, and the freedom to. This video will not give you 5 superficial tips for getting over. It is intended to be something much deeper. It will guide you through 5 alchemical stages, a process for understanding the nature of your projection, identifying the treasure you have lost, and performing a practical and powerful energy withdrawal ritual so that you can finally recover your power and your wholeness. The first stage of your soul's rescue is honest diagnosis, and it begins by embracing the pain of confusion. It's the feeling of feeling a love that seems overwhelming, absolute, and genuine for someone who is objectively toxic, who is emotionally unavailable, who is indifferent, or who simply doesn't. It's the cognitive dissonance, crazy, the internal civil war between what your intuition and know is harmful and what your heart and feeling. What Jung's psychology teaches us here is the fundamental difference between a relationship and a project. Genuine love relates to the real flesh and blood person with all their lights and all their shadows. It sees the imperfect human being and loves them anyway. Attachment based on projection, on the other hand, doesn't love the person. It loves an idealized image projected onto them. And the clearest sign that you're experiencing a projection is the intensity of your emotion being completely disproportionate to the reality of the relationship you actually. You may feel an epic love for someone with whom you have exchanged only a few words, or with whom you have had a brief and superficial relation. This disproportion is the psyche's warnings, and here is the revelation that begins to cut the strings of the puppet. You are not attached to a person. You are attached to a feeling that you believe you can only access through them, whether it is the feeling of finally feeling alive, a feeling safe, a feeling inspired. This feeling is real, but it is not generated by the other person. It is generated by a part of you, a potential of yours that has been activated and projected onto them. The person is not the source of the magic. They are just the mirror that for a moment reflected your own magic to you. And now you miss the reflect without realizing that the source of the light has always been you. To begin to break the spell of this projection, we invite you to do a reality check. Take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, list all the qualities, feelings, and promises of the idealized person who lives in your mind. On the right side, with brutal honesty, list the facts, concrete action, and real words of the real person that contradict this idealized image. Looking at this contrast, seeing the distance between your fantasy and the reality of the facts laid out on paper is a powerful act that begins to dissolve the fog of the projection. Imagine that you went to the movies and fell madly in love with a character of film, with their courage, their charm, their depth. And now the movie is over. The lights have come up, but you refuse to leave the theater. You stand outside the theater, suffering, waiting for that character to step out of the screen, to live a life. Emotional detachment begins with the awareness that you have fallen in love with a projection of light, a screen. The real actor, the real person, is very different from the character, and he or she has long since gone home. Once we understand that our attachment feeds on a projection, the next step in the journey is to identify what exactly we have projected. The pain that guides us here is that of insignificance. It is the deep and painful belief that without this we are less interesting, courageous. It is the feeling that they have somehow taken the best part of you with them, that now you are condemned to live with. In Jungian psychology, especially in attachments of a romantic nature or of deep admiration, what we often project is our anima, the image of our inner feminine soul, or our animus, the image of the masculine soul that lives in our unconscious. In other words, we project onto the other person the image of our own unlived soul potential, the most admirable and luminous qualities of our own totality, which, for some reason, we have not yet had the courage to embody in our own lives. And herein lies the breaking of expectation that transforms the treasure hunt. The qualities that, in your eyes, make this person so unique, special, and irreplaceable, be it their courage, their freedom of spirit, their wild creativity, or their serene stability, are in fact a direct map to your own buried treasure. The universe is not showing you what you have lost. It is showing you what you need to reclaim. You do not need the person to access these qualities. You need to integrate what the person represents. To begin mapping this treasure, we invite you to take a projection inventory. Grab your notebook and the Curiosity Explorer. List the 3 qualities you most admire and idealize in this person. Be specific. Now, next to each of these qualities, write down one small but concrete action you can take this week to begin cultivating that same quality in your own life. If you admire their courage, perhaps your next step is to enroll in that class you dread. If you admire their creativity, perhaps it is to buy a notebook and allow yourself to draw for 15 minutes. The task is to stop admiring the gold in others and start your own. Imagine that you are an immensely wealthy kingdom that one day sent its rarest, most precious jewel to be exhibited in a museum far away, which is the other person. And now, you spend your days and nights visiting that museum, admiring your own jewel through a safety, suffering because you cannot. Emotional detachment is the act of finally closing this. It is the act of reclaiming what is rightfully yours, of bringing the jewel back to its own throne room, where it can finally radiate its power and beauty for the good of your kingdom. Once you have identified the quality projected, the journey leads us to an even deeper question. Why did your soul choose this particular person as the canvas for its projection? And the pain that guides us here is that of repetition. It is the anguish of looking and realizing but a pattern. The frustration of finding yourself repeatedly attached to the same type of person, be they unavailable, critical, narcissistic, distant, leaving us feeling as if we are trapped in a karmic cycle from which we cannot escape. What Jungian psychology teaches us is that the psyche, our soul, has an irresistible drive toward healing and wholeness. And to heal, it causes us to be magnetically and unconsciously drawn to people who activate, with surgical precision, our core complex, our oldest wound, usually formed in childhood. Whether it's the wound of abandonment, rejection, invalidation, or not being seen, our psyche in its way leads us to recreate the original crime scene in the hope that this time, as adults, we can finally achieve a different healing, that we will finally be chosen, seen, and loved as we needed. And here is the revelation that turns your frustration into a diagnosis. Your attachment to this person is not the problem. It is the symptom. The person is not the disease. It is the diagnostic test that reveals the disease. If you are desperately clinging to someone who doesn't choose you, your soul is showing you on a high-definition screen your wound of not being good enough, begging you this time to stop trying to get someone else to choose you and finally learn to choose yourself. The situation is not creating your pain. It is simply shining a spotlight on the original wound so that it can, for the first time, be truly seen and healed by you. To connect the current pain to its true root, the invitation is to do a timeline connection. In a quiet moment, allow yourself to feel the core emotion that this Whether it's the fear of being left, the craving for approval, the feeling of not being important. Then ask yourself, is this feeling new or familiar? And courageously go deep. When was the first time in my life, usually in childhood, that I felt exactly who was it with? Connecting the current pain to its root in your personal history is what allows true healing, rather than simply cutting off the branches and leaving the root intact. Think of your attachment as a severe allergic reaction, and the person in question is the peanut. Every time you come into contact with your internal system explodes a painful reaction, anxiety, obsession, and suffering. A good doctor, a good soul alchemist, does not try to change all the peanuts in the world. That would be impossible. He treats the hypersensitivity of your internal. He helps you to cure your allergy. The person, peanut, simply reveals the allergy that already exists within your soul, so that you can finally take care of it. After all the diagnosis, understanding the projection and the wound, the longing for concrete action arises. It is the pain of helplessness, the desperate desire for a practical tool, for a how-to that goes beyond simply moving on or letting time heal. It is the need for a ritual that can actively begin to dispel and bring real relief to your soul. And this tool exists. It is based on the language our unconscious understands, which is not the language of logic, but that of symbol, image, and ritual. Through Jung's technique of active imagination, we can perform a conscious symbolic act to communicate to our psyche that we are deliberately calling our energy back home. This ritual is the projection withdrawal. But before we begin the ritual, it is crucial to understand one truth. True liberation does not come from anger, violent cutting, or forced indifference. Trying to cut the threads with hatred only makes stronger. True alchemy happens through an act of gratitude. You must first thank the mirror for the lesson. Then, from a place of self, you lovingly take back what is really yours. I invite you now, feel ready, and are in a quiet place where you will not be interrupted, to follow these first steps. First, visualization. Close your eyes, you deep breath, and visualize the person in front. Clearly see the threads of golden light, which represent your energies and your focus, connecting your body to theirs. Second, gratitude and release. With the image clear in your mind, say in your heart or in a whisper, I deeply thank you for showing me what I needed to see your part in my journey in this life is now complete. I lovingly release you. Follow your own path. Third, the cutting and the reabsorption. Now visualize in your hand a tool of light. It could be a pair of scissors, a sword, whatever is most powerful to you. And with a firm but loving action, cut each of the threads of light that connect them. See the ends of the threads that were attached to it coming loose and coming back toward you. And feel these threads of energy being reabsorbed into your body, perhaps in your chest or your solar plexus. Feel the warmth, color, vitality, and fullness returning to you. Feel yourself becoming more complete, more whole. And fourth, the blessing and the fading. Look again at the image of the person, now free of the threads that were holding them to you. Simply see her, a human being, on her own journey. Wish her well, sincerely. Allow her image to gently fade away like smoke in the wind, leaving you alone and whole. You're sacred. Think of this ritual as a declaration of energetic independence. You are not angrily casting someone out of your life. You are, as the ruler of your own kingdom, issuing a peaceful royal decree, informing the universe that your inner territory, energy, is no longer available for foreign occupation. The true ruler, as you, has finally decided to reclaim and inhabit your own territory. After the powerful ritual of rescue, a final and subtle fear may emerge from the silence. It is the fear of emptiness, a secret fear that without the intensity, even if painful, of that attachment, life will become dull, colorless, meaningless. It is the fear that your identity is so intertwined with that suffering that without it, you no longer know who you are or where to go. What Jung's psychology assures us is that the immense amount of psychic energy, of libido, that you used every day to feed obsession, anxiety, and attachment does not disappear when you rescue it. On the contrary, it returns to you, becoming an immense energetic capital that is now entirely at your disposal, waiting to be invested in your own life. And the breaking of expectation that transforms your fear is this. The emptiness that you fear is not a vacuum of absence. It is, in fact, space. It is the clean, sacred, fertile space for your true self, with its authentic desires finally blocked. You do not become empty. You become whole. And the inevitable result of this is a new clarity of mind, a peace you have not felt in years, a burst of creativity, and the awakening of a new and authentic sense to begin to use this new wealth. The invitation is to undertake a reclaimed energy. Ask yourself, with all this energy and mental space that I've reclaimed, what is one project, dream, hobby, or aspect of my health that I can finally begin to actively nurture this week, and then deliberately channel this flow of energy into building your own inner empire? Consider that before, when you were like the moon. You lived on borrowed light, and your phases, your moods, and your happiness were entirely dictated by an external sun, which was the other person. The entire process of letting go that we have described is the alchemical act of building your own inner nuclear fusion reactor. You become the sun. You no longer need external light because you have become the source itself. And paradoxically, it is in this state of radiant self-sufficiency that other worlds, other people, and other opportunities feel naturally drawn to your gravity. We have journeyed together today from the agony of being an emotional satellite orbiting someone else's life to the sovereignty of becoming the gravitational center of your own life. We have gone through the diagnosis of projection, the inner treasure hunt, the logic of the wound, and the ritual. And the central truth that I hope will illuminate your path is that emotional letting go is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about becoming whole. It is the most radical act of self-love you can ever practice, and it is the indispensable prerequisite for any truly healthy relationship you will ever have. For the ultimate goal of the psyche, as Jung showed us, is wholeness, and every painful attachment, every obsession is an invitation from yourself to go on a rescue mission, a mission to bring home a precious part of your soul that had been lost in the other. The person you were struggling to let go of was never your destiny. They were the fierce guardian of a portal that led back to you. Now that you have stepped through that portal, thank the guardian, honor the lesson they taught you, and begin to explore the vast, rich, and peaceful realm that is rightfully yours, your own sovereign soul. Welcome home.